Hello and welcome, you're here with me, Chatty Tumbler, and in this video I'm going to show you how to start up and take off the lovely Arado AR235. I've got what I consider pretty much standard load on this one, 25% fuel, 1,000 litres I did a test, gets you about 430 kilometres, that's 43 of those big squares, so you do not need a lot of fuel on this for most maps. I've got the normal bomb sight, some mirrors, the jet engine thruster here that we're going to drop off, and 1,500 and two 250s. Here we are in the cockpit. First thing I always do, because I always forget otherwise, is to close the canopy. Otherwise that rips off and gives you a lovely view, but we don't want to do that. There are some keys that we need to talk about, so let's go through those. It's all about engine controls really. What we need to do for each engine is we need to be able to select it, to start it, to fire the jet booster, and then to deselect them. So to select or deselect both engines at the same time, that's 0. To select engine 1, that's the left-hand engine, is 1 on your keyboard. Engine 2, which is your right-hand engine, is 2 on the keyboard. And then we need to be able to start them, which is here. So the start is right control and 1 for the left-hand engine, and then right shift and number pad 1 for the ignition. So this is the bit that fires the jet bit, rather than the rockets. We'll talk about that in a second. And then the same for number 2. You need number 2 startup and number 2 ignition. And then with the rockets, you need the jet boosters, which is R for rockets, and then to jettison the boosters is the left shift and delta. Before we actually start the engines, I'm going to show you a couple of dials and levers that we're going to need to look at. So if we peep over the top of this control column here, these are the two engine readouts. They're kind of our RPMs. And if you notice around the outside, it's got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And then on the inside in smaller numbers, you've got like a dot, a 1, a dot, a 2, a dot, and a 3. Well, that's the 3 different stages for the startup. And I'll talk about those bits when we come to them. Then on the left, we have our custard cream lever here, which is the RPM gauge. That's the orange and yellow one. That will move automatically, and we'll use that as an indicator for when we need to start moving the throttle. And the throttle is this yellow one. And at the very base of the throttle, you can probably see there's a red, 2 red clips with a spring in the middle. Those are our pawl locks. And what that'll do is it'll keep our engines at 15% for when we do the startup. So let's get started. To actually start the aircraft then, we need to select the left-hand engine with 1 on the keyboard. So that's the first engine selected. And then we need to right control and 1 to start the sequence. And we'll wait to do its thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch that little needle, this left-hand needle. It's going to start creeping up. And when it gets to either the 5 on the outside or the 1 on the inside, whichever you prefer to look at, we're then going to push right shift and 1 on the number pad. And we're going to keep that held in like some weird tarantula death grip. So this is like the ignition, jet ignition button. So right shift and 1, pressing and holding. And then that needle's going to, we'll hear the engine kick in a second. And it's all shaky, and then when it gets to about the big 10 or the little 2, that's the next stage of the startup sequence. And what we do is we're going to look at the custard creams over here, and that lever will move by itself. I'm not doing anything, it'll just do its own thing. So there you go, it's clicked. And then now what I want to do is I want to tap the throttle very gently, little steps. Otherwise we'll cook our engines. And what I need to do is get up to 15%, and we'll see that little red clip at the bottom. It'll snap back into place. So we're nearly there. There we go, it's snapped into place. Just make sure it's at 15. At this point, I can now let go of right shift and number pad 1. So that's the first engine done. So I'm going to press 1 to deselect the first engine, and then press 2 on the keyboard to select engine number 2, and we do the same thing again. It's right control and 2 this time. So we just tap that, and that starts the sequence. And then when it gets to either the 1 in the middle or the 5 on the outer, whichever you prefer, it's right shift and 2 on the keypad. And we're going to keep that pressed for a little while. Okay, going to press and hold it now. So this is the jet sequence starting. And off that goes. Now if you have a throttle that is kind of one that moves on an axis, you might want to put it back to 0 before you start the second engine. Whereas I have like a key. So there you go, there's the, it's moved into place. I can then start gently tapping, there we go, it up. What I don't want to do is do it quickly, otherwise you will end up on fire. We're just waiting for that red to snap, like so. And that's both engines. I can now let go of right shift and number pad 2. And we're started and good to go. With both engines started, we're good to taxi out. So first of all, make sure you have all engines selected by pressing 0 on the keyboard, and then gently increase your throttle. You don't want to go too quickly or you'll end up on fire. You'll need to use your toe brakes. And we're going to... Oh, nearly set us up on fire there. Slowly increase. And we won't start moving until about 86-87% because we're right in the rough here. I'm just going to gently power up. This thing is a beast to turn. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a nose wheel steering or something I'm missing, or some sort of tail wheel, but I can't find any other way of getting this thing to turn other than jamming the brakes on and hanging on basically. So once we start moving, which will happen any second now. There we go. I'm going to jam on the left control, left wheel brake to turn left. I want to turn around to the runway. I find that if you let this thing get running, then it can cause problems. You need to be the turning as you're rolling. So I'm going to cut the power down a little, and there should be a runway up here to my left somewhere. There we go. Nice and straight, and then again whack on that left brake. And the left toe is working hard here. If you need to do a tight turn, what I would do is I'd split the engines, and maybe just, if I want to turn left, I would just select engine 2 and increase the power of that ever so slightly, and that would make the turns much easier. If you have a split throttle on your joystick, then that would definitely be the way to do it. So just coming up to the runway. Again, maybe should have turned slightly earlier. A little bit of grass will be fine. Okay, and I'm holding both brakes here. So the flaps on this have 3 settings: up, down, and takeoff. And we can get visual confirmation of the green one, which says Ein, Starten, Aus. So if I just tap the flap button once, it will then go into takeoff position. If I tap it again, see the green button's pushed down now, it goes to landing, and then I have to push it up, back to takeoff, and then to takeoff, to normal. So anyway, flaps to takeoff, so the yellow button in the middle is down. Then we're going to use the rockets, which are on the outside, these 2 fantastic ones. Here, these pods with the parachute on the front, and we'll see those deploying. And what I'm going to do is, when we start rolling, I'm going to get to about 100 kilometers an hour. The speedometer is here. It's about 100-ish, and then I'm going to press and hold the R key. It's not an on-off switch, it's a press and hold, and we've got about 35 seconds of boost in those rockets, and we'll kind of hear it clunk a little when it runs out of boost. And then I can just deploy them with the left shift and D delta keys. So let's get airborne. So I've still got the wheel brakes on. I'm going to start powering up. Okay, speed is increasing. And got to about 100 because I've got tail control with the rudder now. And press and hold the rockets. We can hear them boosting in. Yeah, if the tower says I'm not getting clearance now, then no, that's not going to happen. We can rotate at about 210, 220 depending on your payload. So just pull back gently. I'm still pushing the rocket keys. Get the gear up. And with this thing, try and get speed before you climb. Don't do like a HT111, sit at 250 and try and climb. You really need to be level for quite a long time to get the speed up and then do a gentle climb. So we've still got the rockets boosting. They're going to run out of fuel any second. There you go, they're out of fuel, and the plane kind of jinks. So then we push left shift and D. If we go back outside, we'll see them falling off. There's them falling off. And they deploy safely to the ground. Then you need to put your throttle down to about 94%. So let's put that down to 94. And then you can sit at that at 94%, for the rest of your sortie. So once those 2 rockets have fallen off, you have a choice. We've got our flaps down at the moment, which makes climbing really easy, but makes speed really difficult. So the default is actually to put them retracted. That will then build your speed up to over 400 kilometers an hour, and then you'll start a climb. It's entirely up to you which way you want to do it. If you have any questions or comments, please write down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Until then, hope that was of some help to everybody. Stay safe, and happy hunting.